Hello, everyone. It has been a minute, probably a couple of minutes, maybe even an hour, depending on how you view time. My name is Bryce Koon. We're talking Atlanta Braves baseball. And no, we didn't just take off because they weren't playing well. We did take off because we had a lot of stuff going on. We're going to talk about that and more as Logan Whaley joins me here on the Chopaholic podcast, brought to you by the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.
Welcome in. My name is Bryce Koon alongside Logan Whaley, and yes, it has been a minute. Some housekeeping of sorts. Logan, some big things have happened in both of our lives. The fact that we haven't really been able to record here recently, and I guess maybe it's a good thing because for the past 2 weeks we said, hey, the Braves offense is not very good. And I think everyone knows that by this point. But a lot going on. I'll allow you to go first because, hey, it may look the same behind Logan, but he is in a different city, a different state now.
That is very true. We are so back. I'm very glad to be back with you. But I am now a sports anchor in my hometown in Paducah, Kentucky. So very excited about that. I just finished my first week here, so it's been very chaotic. All of it came together super quickly, but here I am still. I think probably the best part is too. I mean, obviously I could get Braves baseball in Jonesboro, but just the fact that I could get Braves baseball more easily here is definitely a big plus here. More Braves fans around this area too, so very much a pro for sure.
And look, I don't know where you are in Kentucky. I've got some really good family friends that are in northern Kentucky, and Reds fans aren't bad either. They're not bad people. I appreciate. I can live with Reds fans. But I think you're a little bit farther west of that. So, but hey, Logan, obviously big news for your brand new apartment that you're rocking and rolling in. We've added a new member to our family, not the Crowded Booth family, but to the Koon family, as my wife gave birth to a little baby girl 2 weeks ago tomorrow. We're recording this on Monday and releasing this on Monday afternoon before the start of the Detroit series. So a lot of big things been happening, but we appreciate you staying patient with us as we get ready to kind of crank it back up in the summer. And Logan, as we kind of open this, make sure you subscribe to the channel. One more housekeeping detail. If you listen to these podcasts, and yes, I do see the numbers, you do listen to it, we're going to be creating a new feed just for the Chopaholic podcast that you can go subscribe to completely free. It's all going to stay on the same YouTube channel, but a new podcast feed that you're going to be able to find on Spotify and Apple. Hey, and you can follow a Twitter/X account, if you still call it that, whatever you might do, as well, with some good content. So let's just dive right in. Logan, we're talking about a team that throughout the majority of the month of May just didn't really play great baseball. And that's not a hot take. The statistics and the facts, show that. I will say I've seen quite the hot takes. You and I have been sending screenshots back and forth to one another of potential trade ideas. And we can have an hour and a half long show here. I mean, they could broadcast this live on radio from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. if they wanted to. But the fact of the matter is that over the past 4 or 5 days, really starting with the end of the road trip on that final game, and then turning around and playing Tampa Bay for 3 games, taking 2 out of 3 from the Rays, who, they're not the Rays maybe last year, but still a well-coached ball team, and a team that you really, you can take a lot of things away from when you beat them. They take 2 out of 3 from there. The biggest question, Logan, I'll throw it to you. Are they starting to turn it around? We knew they were unlucky, but man, this past weekend, getting back home, you've mentioned this in earlier episodes, the summertime in Atlanta in that ballpark, it might make a difference, and it might have just come at the right time.
Yeah, can we talk about just how awesome baseball is, and in particular the NL East? Because not only do you have the Braves and the power of the Snit Bear, which
yes,
if you're on social media, I believe it was what a gift from Brian Snitker to Marcell Ozuna, who then
Brian Snitker regifted the gift from someone else, which Brandon Gaudin said on the broadcast, and I was floored that because somewhere whoever gave that bear to Snitker, whether it's a grandchild or something like that, they feel responsible for a potential Braves turnaround, but also hey, come on, Grandpa, like, come on, what's the deal?
Exactly. I mean, mixed emotions there, but also within the same NL East, you have the Mets who've gone undefeated since Grimace throughout the first pitch. So it's a crazy time around baseball right now. Let's just say, but no, to answer your question, I think it's encouraging to see the bats start to come around, and obviously, and I think you heard it in post game press conferences. Brian Snicker, almost to the annoyance of some Braves fans, just
Yeah.
consistently saying, "Hey, things are going to break at some point. Things are going to break at some point." And he had every reason to say that and to think that. And it's not just wishful thinking. It's just look at the stats, look at the career numbers of these guys who have been slumping. I mean, Austin Riley, if you think he's going to hit 60 points lower than his career average all season, I mean, it could happen, but the odds of that happening, not very likely. So it's great to see Riley start to get back going again. Great to see Ozuna keep killing the baseball. Obviously Matt Olson's starting to get going too, but yeah, at the same time, there are still concerns. Obviously, the injuries are starting to pile up, and
Yeah.
it's really concerning, especially in the outfield. I don't think Ramon Laureano is going to be the answer long term. So I'm curious to see what the Braves do at the deadline to kind of patch things up in that outfield. But very exciting though. I mean, I feel like the Rays series, the performance at the plate, I felt like it was something Braves fans, myself included, we've been waiting to see for quite some time now, and finally it feels like things are starting to get rolling again.
Yeah, and you and I were texting back and forth, Logan, just about some of the unlucky, like the exit velo's, been there. The expected batting average has been there, and I think one guy you've really seen turn it around over the past week has been Matt Olson. He was riding a 9-10 game hitting streak, and we had seen him put some really good balls in play. Not get the results he wanted, and then just exploded. Austin Riley, 3 straight games with a home run, including clutch ABs, and that was something a lot of fans were complaining about was the type of at bats. I don't know, and I can't remember the guy who was pitching, to Riley in that at bat, but that was like a 9 pitch at bat. He threw the kitchen sink, and I don't think you got to watch the game. I don't know if you did yesterday, but he threw the kitchen sink at him and 3-2 fastball. And what does Jeff Rencour say about, when you see a guy, Marcell Ozuna does this when he's on fire, Austin Riley does this when he's really starting to see the ball well, spraying the ball opposite field with power. And he's sitting into that right center gap over the bullpen there in right center field. And I just think that was a telling sign of, hey, he's really starting to see the baseball well.
Yeah.
Matt Olson had a good series. Marcell Ozuna is one of the best hitters in baseball. I mean, like, that's a legitimate statement. So
can we talk about that Jose Siri home run in the ninth too? How in the world did he hit that out? I'm still wondering that. And sidebar, have you seen? I've got a stat pulled up here about Jose Siri's last 160 games. He has 33 homers, 19 steals, but a 216 batting average and a 273 on base.
So Buddy just hits tanks. That's all he does.
Yeah, it is insane to me. But yeah, that home run, I have no idea how he hit that out.
Yeah, no, and people were upset about it, Iglesias, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think Iglesias' fastball, he was obviously pumped up to be in that spot, probably should have stayed with it. He sped the bat up with a changeup, but still, even then, that's just a good pitch, and somehow Siri got underneath it to hit it out. But, staying with Atlanta's offense, Logan, it's encouraging. I saw a lot of people on social media with the news that Nacho Alvarez got called up to AAA. Is that someone they would push potentially, if Orlando Arcia continues to struggle? Arcee's got a good glove. Orlando was actually pretty good in the month of April when you go back and look at it. And so it's just kind of like guys are taking their turns. I think we could both sit here and say, like, we expect Olson to do what he's going to do. We expect, Travis d'Arnaud is going to be Travis d'Arnaud. Sean Murphy, he's just got to stay healthy and like be able to get consistently some at-bats here with how much time he missed the beginning of the season. The biggest concern is the outfield. Because now if Michael Harris, it was a grade 2 hamstring strain, Logan, he's gone for, an amount of time. The only guy I feel comfortable throwing out there every day is Jared Kelenic in that leadoff spot, who's become a new human being. And he's having fun, man. That's exciting to see. Duvall's not a regular at this point in his career. That's okay. I like him as a bench bat in a postseason matchup. I like that. Ramon Laureano, I would have been excited about Laureano maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Not as excited, as I am now. JP Martinez is another guy. I mean, what I think, Logan, I'll throw it to you, is I think they are trying to, and some fans are going to have a problem with this, exhaust every internal option before they get into crunch time for the deadline.
Yeah, And even I think Forrest Wall got called up today.
Mhm.
I think Martinez got sent down. So I think you're exactly right in the sense that they are going to try everything. What I think needs to happen, you're right about Adam Duvall. I don't think he's a regular starter. Just look at his stats against right-handed pitching this season versus
Yeah.
his stats against lefties. I mean, he still destroys left-handed pitching. That's one thing that Duvall still does and still can do well. I mean, gosh, if I remember this correctly, just from walks to strikeout ratio, he's only walked 3 times against righties this year, 12 times against lefties, and then he struck out I think 30 times against righties and like half of that against lefties. It's insane the difference in the approach that he has against righties versus against lefties. But I think I feel like if there is a trade that's made, outfield's one of the easier positions to go get in the deadline. I think
Yeah.
Adopoulos already proved that in 2021.
Yeah.
And so if the internal options don't work out, which to be honest, I mean, I don't think the expectations are going to be super high for Forrest Wall or JP Martinez or any of these guys. But if they overperform, that makes things a little easier for
Yeah.
Alex Anthopoulos. But I still think even if they do play well enough to earn a spot in the lineup, I think there needs to be a trade that needs to happen. If the and again, Braves don't have to give up, you know, a boatload of prospects for like Luis Robert Jr. or somebody like that.
Yeah.
I do think there are other options out there.
Tommy Pham.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be good with Tommy Pham. Some of these guys that have 1 year left on their deal. I mean, just short-term rentals, right? Like that was the recipe in 2021 and it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, with Luis over there in Chicago, I mean, please God, someone get him out of the South Side because he's a talented player, and I think
Yeah.
he would flourish, in a better spot. Atlanta doesn't have the prospect capital to go get him. Chicago's going to be able to use him as a piece that to kind of reset their franchise. And but I was reading an article. Tommy Pham, just from what he brings to the table in terms of locker room culture, very similar to what Jock Peterson brought. Stephen Vogt brought back in that 2020 team, 2021 team of no nonsense. Let's go play baseball. And maybe that fits. I don't know. I mean, it's easy to look in hindsight about what worked in 2021. Does that work with this 2024 version of the Braves? I don't know. That's for Anthopoulos and that front office to kind of sort through and figure out. But like we're talking about outfield wise, we've talked about some of the options that they're going to have to go to, but man, let's just talk for a second. Jared Kelenic, they move him into the leadoff spot, Logan, and this has been fun. This guy is flourishing. He doesn't have to be a guy, he doesn't have to be the top overall prospect in baseball. He's just having fun while playing great defense. He's got a cannon. And that bat and that swing, man, it looks night and day, when you start to compare some side by sides to what he was doing in Seattle.
Yeah, absolutely. And I look at Kelnick too. I mean, especially the past few games, it really seems like the power's starting to come around too. Because
Yeah.
first couple months of the season, the power just didn't look like it was there, and you kind of wonder who is this Jared Kelnick player that it was like nobody had any idea what to make of him because he was one of the few Braves that wasn't just like performing like Marcell Ozuna, but he also wasn't slumping like Austin Riley was. So
Yeah.
he was just steady. And I think that's something that he provides to this Braves offense in general. He's a steady guy. He's someone you could throw out there just about at any part of the lineup, and he could do just fine. And I think you're starting to see why Alex Anthopoulos valued him in a trade over this offseason. Because I mean, look, it was not a risk-free trade whenever he made that deal.
No.
He very much saw something in Kelnick, and I think you're starting to see why right now because he's definitely providing a spark at the top of the lineup now.
Well, he's doing that, and just the way he plays the game. I mean, he runs every single ground out. I mean, he's a guy who I think has a chip on his shoulder in terms of I know who I was when I was drafted, and I'm not. I don't have the same lore. I don't have the same hype around me. So let me just go be a gamer. And look, Braves fans love guys like that. Like when you go back in and look at some of the players in Braves history that have been, nose to the ground, gritty guys. I just think of a couple of guys that just kind of grinded their way to be consistent options. Maybe not the best player on the team, couple guys that come to mind for me. One of my all-time favorite utility guys of all time, Martin Prado. Like was a guy that just was gritty. You look at a couple other names. I mean, Braves have had some catchers that are exactly like that. The Evan Gattises of the world. They don't have to be the best players, but they just kind of grind their way, become fan favorites, and I think Kelenich's on his way to doing that.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and also total blast from the past with those names. And I'm very, very like I haven't thought about Martin Prado. In
I
a minute,
loved Martin
so.
Prado, man.
Oh
I
yeah,
loved
me
Martin
too.
Prado.
Me too. Omar Infante, anyone?
Ooh, yeah, Omar Infante, Marcus Giles was another, smaller guy that, and not saying that Kelenich's a smaller guy, but just those gamers, like Matt Diaz, like guys that just kind of made a career on coming up with the big hits. Yeah, we could get into a whole let's name random Braves contest, but yeah, I like what Kelenic brings to the table. I like what we're seeing, and Logan, to kind of round it out offensively here. Keep it rolling. Like you face a Detroit team. I'm gonna look and see real quick. Do they miss?
I know they get Reese Olson.
Okay.
Wondering about Scooball.
Yeah, is Scooball one of the guys that I don't know. I'm gonna have to look and
I
see.
think I want to say Olson's near the. I think Olson's middle of the rotation.
Okay, so they get Reese Olson tonight, Casey Mize, the former Auburn Tiger, on Tuesday, and then it's Ronaldo Lopez against Tariq Scooball on Wednesday around 12:20 Central, 1:20 Eastern. So you're going to get their best, but this is a series, man. If you can take 2 out of 3, keep the bats rolling, you can outscore Detroit. You should be out to outscore Detroit. But yeah, Logan, any final thoughts offensively here before you go over to the pitching?
Oh man. Well, Reese Olson, that's a guy that has really struggled over his past few starts. So I think that this is a really good opportunity to kind of keep it rolling here. You got Max Fried on the bump, who's been pitching incredibly well. So we'll see how well this ages by the time tonight rolls around. But I really like the matchups here. And then Lopez against Scooball, I think that's going to be must watch because Scooball, if you remember, kind of toward the beginning of the season, you remember my dark horse Cy Young pick? You remember?
Yes,
Yeah?
Buddy's good. Buddy is good.
Had to slide that in there. Had to put myself over a little bit there. But anyway, but that'll be a must watch matchup to me just because of how well both of those guys have been pitching this year.
Yeah, no, I like it. A couple more stats before we move on to pitching here. Kelenic, so far this month in 11 games, he's hit 306 with an 887 OPS through 11 games. And then we talked about Matt Olson, that recent run that he's been on over the past 2 weeks or so. He's hitting 333 with over 1,000 OPS since the day that Acuna got injured. So, look, Matt Olson, we know what he can do. And Logan, he's only 7 home runs shy of where he was last year. He hit 54 last year. Like that's an astronomical number. If he hits 40 or something, he'll be fine. Atlanta will be fine. So not too concerned with that. But let's take a look at pitching because there's concerns. Schwellenbach has been. You see the stuff. I love Hurston Waldrop. I think he is going to be a good major league pitcher for the Braves. I love what Francoeur said yesterday on the broadcast, Logan. He essentially said, look, you can see the stuff. Like when these guys miss, they are fooled. The problem is you have a guy who has to understand how to navigate through the second and third time through the lineup. He really hasn't had that challenge so far in the minors. He's been able to deal. They send him back down to AAA. I don't think this is the last we've seen of Hurston Waldrop. Some Facebook fans, which I don't even know why I engaged, called him a bust, a bum. I don't understand that, but I think he's going to be good. You see the stuff plays. He's just got to learn how to pitch at the major league level.
Yeah, and I'm curious too because I know that the Braves put him on the injured list with elbow soreness.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious if they changed their mind about optioning him because, I mean, either way, it opens up a roster spot. But I don't know. I thought that was interesting to me. But yeah, to your point, I do like the younger guys. Schwellenbach, I really the underlying metrics are there for him.
Yeah,
through these first few starts, and Hurston Waldrop. I mean, same deal with him. I mean, absolutely right. I think you can see the stuff, but you could kind of tell that the command wasn't there, kind of in the middle innings, and that came back to bite him. That the ending with the grand slam is what I go back to. I think what two or if not all 3 of those base runners. I'm trying to remember how many of those were walks. I know at least 2 of them were. So
yeah,
I mean that's just something he's got to learn at this level, but. He's going to be fine. Both of those guys are young. AJ Smith-Shawver, whenever he gets back, That's another guy that you kind of look to when it comes to development. And if just one of those guys could be a regular contributor by the time October rolls around, that'd be fantastic.
It would. You're not wrong. It would be fantastic. I have to cut that, Bryce. Cut that. I'm at that 20-minute mark. It would be fantastic to see for sure. Now, the question is, well, what if you don't? And Logan, I was like this during the postseason last year. Offensively, you can't really get better players than Atlanta has when healthy. It's one of the best. Like, this isn't over the show. You can't have the third best right fielder in the game and say, well, we want to go get the first best. Like, that's not how these front offices work. Now, pitching wise, I've sat the past couple years and said, you cannot keep throwing these young guys in this situation over and over again in October. That being said, we kind of look at, what they've done. They've got Fried. He's going to be Max Fried. Charlie Morton spun the ball really, really well on Saturday. Really like what we saw to him. Chris Sale's been there. Ronaldo Lopez has been there. Those four guys are there. Now, Schwellenbach is still, in the rotation, and he's going to be a guy that Atlanta will send out on Tuesday night against Casey Mize. What is the area of concern? Maybe what's your level of concern as you look at this and say, okay, it's an audition for Schwellenbach, and it's an audition for a couple more guys before they need to go get not a top of the line guy. They've got the top of the line guys in the rotation, but we need to go get a veteran that can, throw 4, 5, 6 innings and give us some quality starts.
Yeah, I agree. And I think when the Braves do that, whenever they get that veteran, it will allow less pressure to be put on Schwellenbach and Waldrop and Smith-Shawver, et cetera, to the point where they could be in the bullpen for October and give more depth, which, the Braves bullpen, they've been dealing with injuries this season too with, Minter and Pierce Johnson. And, obviously, Iglesias he's been kind of hit or miss. He's just been average. That's okay. You don't have to be, Josh Hader type, which, Josh Hader hasn't been the best either. But you don't have to be top end with a bullpen like this that has so much depth. And if the Braves go out and get a frontline, or not a frontline starter, but a veteran, then to be able to get those young guys experience in like short inning stints, I really like that. I think that would be very beneficial come October.
Do you feel like, and as I'm looking some stuff up here, do you feel like, well, the clock here, we're looking at a late July. You have about a month to kind of find a guy that can find his stride. I will say this, I wouldn't mind if they still went and got somebody. If one of these young guys was able to kind of find what they want. We've learned you cannot have, enough pitching depth especially with this team.
Oh, no doubt. And especially with the injury history too. Chris Sale's been healthy to this point, knock on wood. Max Fried's dealt with his share of injuries over the past couple seasons. So yeah, pitching depth is never a bad thing.
All right, I'm looking at some stats here, and I found a guy that I wouldn't mind Atlanta going to get, and I hope I say his name right. Former Washington National, now with the Chicago White Sox. Eric, is it Fetty? Am I saying that correctly? Eric Fetty fits the bill. Like, to me, like, hey, if Atlanta can go find a package to bring Tommy Pham and Eric Fetty to Atlanta, I would love that in terms of giving yourself a guy that can, play the outfield. Is going to bring, he's got some pop in his bat. He's going to bring good attitude, I think, and people use that term loosely, maybe, but a good demeanor, playoff demeanor. Also, Tommy Pham bats over 300 in the postseason and has over 850 OPS in the postseason. Combine that with Eric Fetty, who is the definition of a back end guy for this Atlanta rotation. Because hey, look, if Schwellenbach falters, if Hurston Waldrop falters, if Smith-Shawver falters towards the end of the season, you can insert Fetty in there and know this is a guy that is not going to be dazed by the bright lights, of Truist Park against Philadelphia in September or October. And that's just kind of, I don't know, that's kind of where that's kind of where I sit with that.
No doubt. And I agree with you on that. I think that, Fetty's a guy that would be really good. White Sox are definitely going to be a team that sells. Just no way they're not. I'm curious though, because to me, I think the main targets that teams are going to be going after are your Luis Robert types and Garrett Crochet. Like I'm curious if they will deal Garrett Crochet at the deadline too, which I don't think the Braves can afford him. I think with the way that he's performed this year. I mean, gosh, look at his last outing. Struck out 13 over 7 innings, I think, and only threw one off-speed pitch the whole time. I mean, it's insane. Is what that
Wild.
is. But
Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, no, but I was going to say I think the White Sox would be a good team to work with when it comes to that. Uh, Tigers as well. I mean, Jack Flaherty. I think that could be a guy that the Braves could go get as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to throw another name in there, and before we kind of move on, Tyler Anderson, who looks more like the 2022 version with that he was with the Dodgers. He's in the second year of a 43-year, $40 million deal with the Angels. That's a decent amount of change, but it's probably something people don't want to talk about. If for some reason Freed doesn't come back, then you have stability and another veteran guy in the rotation to roll with in 2025. So, yeah. That's but hey, we'll do a trade deadline preview here in the next couple of weeks as we get clear stuff on that.
Yeah. Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to you. Sounds good to Logan. Logan, any final thoughts? I mean, hey, the offense is turning it around. There's reason for confidence. There's reason for hope. The sky is not falling. I would hate to see Braves Twitter if this team was actually bad. I would absolutely hate to see what social media would look like, because the overreactions have been there, and they were not good. Like, the offense was not very good, but man, you're still in contention. Anything can happen. I understand the division's doing what the division's doing right now, but hey, let's just make the postseason and see what happens.
I'm with you, and I think the one thing that is very interesting too, when it comes to the National League as a whole, look at the wild card standings. I mean, this is not going to be an easy path to
No.
the postseason. But the Braves right now, I mean, despite everything, still 4 games ahead. Yeah, I mean, they're first wild card team right now. And granted, there's a logjam of teams with over 30 wins. I mean, you look at even within the own division, like Nationals are sub 500 right now, which is crazy.
The Nationals are tied for the third wild card spot,
which is crazy. It is crazy.
Mets are a game and a half out.
Yeah, I mean, it is crazy to think about right now. But I mean, there are teams that are overperforming right now, teams that are underperforming right now. But obviously, I'm with you. I've seen the overreactions, and I don't cringe at them, because I mean, look, there's a shred of truth to them, and I think there is a valid reason to be concerned. But to throw it all away and just say, this team is not a playoff team, I just have a hard time believing that this team can miss the playoffs. Is it possible? Sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. But this is a team that's well built, and I do think the results are going to start coming around eventually.
I mean, the depth is being tested for sure. They don't have the minor league depth that they did 2-3 years ago. But the reason that is because a lot of it has graduated into consistent Major League Baseball players.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I sit with that. But no, it's good stuff. Hey, good show to kind of kick things back off. We'll be back though, continuing to, we'll be back. I don't know when. We're going to have to figure that out, how we want to kind of do this. But we're going to be back. Atlanta plays Detroit next 3 games. Then they go on the road to New York. I believe they have an off day on Thursday, Logan. So maybe we hop on a pod Thursday and kind of recap what we see out of this series against Detroit. And hopefully we're talking about a team that is, maybe 2 out of 3 or a 3-game sweep of the Tigers would not be shabby either. Hey, once again, a couple housekeeping notes. We appreciate you staying patient with us. We're going to still maintain these shows on the Crowded Booth YouTube channel, but get ready. In the next couple of days and maybe the next week, we're going to be launching a new podcast feed where you can subscribe separately from the Crowded Booth, which is kind of taking on its own college football spin of things. The Chopaholic's going to stay under that umbrella, but be all Braves content, to make sure you get there so you can follow that as well. He is Logan Whaley. My name's Bryce Koon. He's got a new job, and I'm a dad now, so we got a lot of big changes, and it's been a ton of fun. We'll be talking Braves baseball with you later on this week. We'll catch you next time here on the Chopaholic.